Hi, I'm Kyle Mathews, co-founder and CTO at Gatsby. And wow, it's another Gatsby conference. Excited to be back here talking. And I'm excited to dig in today to how we've made Gatsby build 10x faster in Gatsby Cloud versus other platforms. So two questions we often get. First, why are builds so fast in Gatsby Cloud? There'll be someone evaluating Gatsby Cloud, against some other solution, and they'll be blown away by how much faster it is. And they'll be like, what's going on? Like, what's the magic here? Is this documented anywhere? So I kind of want to dive into the details a bit about what we've done to make builds so fast. The second question is, why GraphQL? People, see other frameworks that are pretty unopinionated, and they see Gatsby and they're like, okay, you're very opinionated about this GraphQL thing. Like, they might like GraphQL, they might not like GraphQL, but they're just really curious why we, want GraphQL as such a critical piece of it. And to answer these questions, I'm going to be diving into our architecture. So when you talk about architecture, you must ask two questions. Like, first, what is the goal? And then second, how is the architecture doing against those goals? So software for web development, it falls along a spectrum. This spectrum can be like code to no code. So like, do you write code to build a website or not? Another is, is the tool you're using, does it feel like a framework? It's kind of like giving you a bunch of building blocks to build something, or is it more like a product where you're sort of, logging in and clicking around to do stuff? Another way of thinking about this is, does the tool allow for many use cases that are very unrelated to each other, or is it seem designed for a specific sort of use case? Another way I think about it is like the users. Is the users of the tool very technical, or are they non-technical? Or are they developers or marketers, who they're kind of the primary user of the tool? And if we place a few tools along the spectrum, from the many thousands of options, of course, Rails and Laravel, from the PHP world, are two kind of famous, widely used coding tools. And like no code, Wix and Squarespace are very popular and very widely used. But if you look at this chart, you might notice that there's a big kind of gap in the middle. So what kind of tool would fit into that? And this is what I call like the CMS category. And so like popular tools would include like WordPress and Shopify. And what's interesting, if you look at like the list of top technologies on the web by kind of percentage of websites, what you notice is that it's dominated by CMSs. WordPress, of course, which dwarfs everything else, then Shopify, and then like 5 and 6, Joomla and Drupal also have big proportion of the web are powered by them. And then Wix and Squarespace, are two no-code tools. If you kind of like chart this out, there's roughly 1 billion websites in the web, and so the CMS sort of space in the spectrum is where most sites are. And the reason for this is that CMS category is so big is because most sites are built not just by developers and not just marketers, but by blended teams where both developers and marketers are working together. Like CMSs are designed to kind of like maximize blended team freedom. So a team of developers and marketers working together. CMSs allow both coders to write code and for like marketers and other non-technical users to kind of like be able to do their jobs without having to write code. So if you chart developer freedom along the sort of spectrum from code to no code. In a coding environment, developers have 100% freedom. They can do whatever they want. But in a no-code environment, you can't write code, of course. And so now you're just like any other user. You've lost your superpower. And for the marketers, it's the reverse. In a no-code environment, they're in complete control. They're never blocked. They don't have to ask anyone to do anything. But in a pure coding environment, they have to write specs and ask other people to do them for them. So if you combine those two, it's kind of like a sweet spot for these blended teams of devs and marketers. Both of them have enough freedom to get their job done, and together they kind of have the maximum freedom. And together, in a CMS, teams can move the fastest. So where's Gatsby along the sort of code to no code spectrum, like framework to product spectrum? And if you're following our talks the last few years, it's probably no surprise. We are in the middle. Our goal is to serve both developers and marketers. We sometimes think ourselves as React for CMS sites. But it all sounds very nice and well. But what does it actually mean in concrete terms to be in this sort of middle, the CMS category? So if we look at this, these tools again, what distinguishes, say, WordPress from Rails? And there's a lot that can be said about this, but boiled down to its essence, to be in the middle means that marketers always have fast CMS preview. And there's two requirements for fast CMS preview. One is that you click a preview button in whatever backend you're using, and you get sent to the right page on the front end with the updated content. And the second requirement is you see that update in under 10 seconds. So for the time you click preview button to land on the right page and seeing your updates, less than 10 seconds have gone by. So with Gatsby and Contentful, for example, I have here a screenshot of this all working. So you can click on, the Open Preview button, and then you're taken to a preview version of the site. And so the trick here, that's kind of happening under the hood, is that CMS are automatically linking this backend edit screen to the front end page. They have some sort of linkage between those two. So they know when you click on a preview, which of all the possible pages on the front end to take you to. And this is accomplished through what's called a data layer. So here's sort of like an architectural diagram where you have your front end code, you have your back end systems, and this data layer, which is like how the front end talks to the back end, ensures that that kind of linkage between the back end and the front end is maintained. So like with WordPress, we have front end, data layer, back end. And what CMS maintain then is sort of this like lookup table, where on the left hand they have like, here's all your data, and on the right hand, here are all the pages that kind of correspond to those pieces of data. So it knows that if you're, editing node 4, then you click preview, it should take you to the events page. If you're editing node 2, then it should instead take you to blog 2. So in recent years, a lot of kind of web architectures have shifted from more monoliths, where everything's like tightly integrated together, to especially the backend to kind of like modular SaaS services. So like for having integrated CMS like WordPress, you might use a headless CMS like Contentful. And so this is where kind of Gatsby comes in, is that Gatsby, kind of reintegrates the CMS with these modular composable backends. So Gatsby provides the front end, the data layer, just like a traditional CMS, and then allows you to kind of like pick and choose between different backends. And then we ensure through our data layer that the preview that marketers required still works, whatever the backend you choose. So through our data layer, Gatsby automatically links any backend edit screen from any service to its corresponding front end page. And this works, not just with like one backend. So like WordPress front end through its data layer only works with its backend. But with Gatsby, Gatsby's front end, Gatsby's data layer works with any number of backends. So this is a list of different CMS partners that we work closely with. And we worked really closely to, drive this preview experience that I'm describing, where each of these have a Gatsby Cloud edit button. You click on it and it opens up to the right page in under 10 seconds. And it's been really thrilling just to see all this come together over the last year or so that we've been working hard on it. So this is a first for the composable CMS world. This is the first time that like out of the box, you have everything stitched together and working like you expect it to. Brilliant preview working across many services. So really what we're trying to do with Gatsby is restore, the famous 5-minute install that WordPress, kind of pioneered. And that, you have one install script, you set it up, and in 5 minutes, you have a full-blown CMS, ready for marketers and developers to start building out something amazing. And what Gatsby does in Gatsby Cloud is bring that same sort of 5-minute install experience, but for the composable web. So you can pick and choose between different backends, and in 5 minutes have, a full-blown developer environment and marketer environment to start building something amazing. The 2 requires fast preview again, click preview button and get sent to the right page. We just covered how that works in Gatsby Cloud. And now we'll move on to the second kind of key requirement for fast preview, which is that it happens in under 10 seconds. So first off, it's like, why 10 seconds? Perhaps that may sound kind of arbitrary. And the reason is that if preview is slow, like slower, if it takes longer than 10 seconds to see preview, it starts feeling really painful to use. And this comes out of a lot of kind of UX research around how the human brain, reacts to like kind of slowdowns in a tool. And it's around 10 seconds when, the average user attention span is maxed out and their mind starts wandering and they lose the flow of what they're trying to do. So we know if preview is under 10 seconds, it feels pleasant to use. But more than 10 seconds, it gets increasingly unpleasant and difficult to focus on sort of whatever task you're trying to do. So great news, which is that, from our, measurements of preview builds, we know the majority of sites in Gatsby Cloud have under 10-second preview builds. So we've already come a long ways. How do we do that? So backing up a bit, there's 2 ways you can build out a site. There's what's called real-time stream processing and batch processing. And batch processing, is sort of invented basically at the same time as computing itself was invented. And it was ubiquitous in the early days of computing and still is very, widely used. And the idea is that you have data and you periodically process it into something else. So an easy example is, nightly sales report batch process. You gather all the sales, all the sales records from the day, and then you process them into easier to read reports at the end of the day. And this works great. Everyone has written stuff like this. Everyone's done batch processing type stuff, and is robust and nice in pretty much every way, except it's often too slow, especially for kind of modern businesses that need information faster. It's like calculating sales reports once a day is too slow. And so in recent years, companies are moving to what's called like real-time stream processing, where you get similar benefits as batch processing, but you get results a lot faster. So there's been a big explosion in the space, from like, the tech giants to, open source tools like Kafka and Spark. And Gatsby is at the forefront of the same transition, for building websites from batch to real-time stream processing. So in this sort of model, like static site generator and like traditional like CI/CD type platforms are modeled after batch processing ideas. But I designed Gatsby so it could do real-time streaming builds, so that it wasn't constrained by, the slowness of batch processing. So in Gatsby Cloud, when we run a build, it runs in sort of this like real-time streaming mode. But on other platforms, it's batch processing, because that's sort of the constraint of them, is that that's the model that Gatsby has to fit in. Because of that difference between batch and stream, this is why Gatsby builds 10x faster in Gatsby Cloud. So a community member recently kind of put this to the test, where he took a 1,000-page WordPress site and ran, a build on both Gatsby Cloud and then like 5 other platforms, and found that, Gatsby Cloud, as we promised, is, far faster, to the tune of, around like 20 seconds to, tens of minutes on some of the other platforms. We're really happy with that. That's been the result of like a ton of hard work by, a lot of people here at Gatsby. But we're not satisfied where we're at. We're not fast enough in every case. Preview has to be under 10 seconds, and we're not always there. And so I've been working with a few other engineers on making publishes even faster. So we took the ideas kind of embedded in real-time streaming, where real-time, means starts immediately, and stream means does transforms in small chunks. And so we looked everywhere in the build process and saw where we could, speed things up by applying these principles. And we found a bunch of big improvements, and that we've been working the last few months on implementing. We're close to deploying. And we're kind of like all these ideas together, we're calling incremental deploys. And the speed up is huge. So we have a benchmark site, which is like a 100-page contentful blog, and preview is 5x faster with incremental deploys versus the current system. So 13 seconds to 2.5 seconds. We also created sort of standard benchmark sites so that we can compare how fast a publish took, whether it was a 100-page site or 10-page site or 100-page site. So a 100-page site dropped from 14 seconds to 1.5 seconds. 10,000-page site dropped from 30 seconds to 4 seconds. And 100K page site dropped from almost 3 minutes down to 17 seconds. And so you can see before there's like quite big variance, especially in the larger size sites, and now they're all quite fast. And so, again, on that 10-second preview time, based on what we're seeing, we believe now that sites up to around 50,000 pages can have less than 10-second previews, which is a huge improvement, and we're super excited about this. So some real world improvements, GatsbyJS.com, we're seeing 3x faster publishes. Penn State News, which is like a 70,000 page site sourced from Drupal, is seeing around 4x improvement. Yeah, and returning back to the community member, benchmarking of different platforms, I asked him to also try out incremental builds on his on the same thing, and it went from 20 seconds down to around 8 seconds. So, big improvement there as well. But we're not done. Like, we're super happy with this, but our goal is not to only support sites up to 50,000 pages. We want to support sites up to millions of pages. So what you see here is a trace of a 100,000 page build in Honeycomb, which we use to kind of like track information about what's happening during publishes. And so what I've done on the screenshot is kind of like crossed out all the areas where there's big improvements that are able to be. So as you can see, there's some really long spans that are taking quite a bit of time in those bigger ones. And so we think that once we've implemented the fixes for those kind of crossed out areas, that even a 100,000 page site, a million page site, will take about the same amount of time as a 100-page site or a 10,000 page site. So we're super excited about what's coming. We're looking for beta testers to help ready this for everyone. So please sign up for early access, and you'll work closely with me and a few other engineers, and we're going to make your experience a lot better. So conclusions. We started this talk, asking about, what is the goal of Gatsby's architecture, and how do we evaluate how it's doing? So Gatsby's goal is to provide the front end and data layer for modern CMS sites, and we believe that fast preview is the heart of a CMS, which means you have a preview button, takes you to the right page, and it opens in under 10 seconds. And we're rolling out improvements to ensure every preview takes 10 seconds for every site on Gatsby. So thank you, and happy previewing, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Stay tuned for the live Q&A.
And we are back. We are live, and there he is. It's the man. It's Mr. Kyle Mathews. Welcome, Kyle.
Hello. Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I got to ask you first before we get to the real questions. Kyle, like, you started this whole thing. How does it feel to, now a few years later have 10,000 people signing up to hear about Gatsby and all these people in the conference? How does that feel?
Surreal? I don't know. It feels amazing. Yeah, it's really exciting to, just be part of big shifts in technology. I've been involved in the CMS world for a long time, and there's been a lot of longstanding problems, and be able to play a part. There's many other people, playing parts too. I don't want to overstate my role, but anyways, just be able to play a part and kind of taking the experience of people building, websites to the next level is really fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of that taken to the next level, and I know you talked about it in your talk, we talk about things like fast publishing, right? And of course, I don't know, everybody wants everything to be fast, but why does that really matter? Why does it matter how fast we're able to publish stuff?
Yeah, so Gatsby, of course, chooses the static model versus sort of the traditional SSR model. And one of the things that kind of seems like you lose there is the ability to kind of quickly show updates to data. And what we're trying to do with Gatsby and Gatsby Cloud is say you can have your cake and eat it too. It's like you get all the benefits of static, which is 100% secure websites, easy caching, high uptime, easily handle spikes in traffic. But you still want sort of the advantage of the traditional model where you can update parts of your website really quickly. You want to have live preview, stuff that makes it really easy for the marketer to kind of maintain and run the site. And so what we're trying to do is, make sure that developers, marketers, and sort of the end users all have wonderful experiences. Because kind of traditional CMS, it's sort of marketers are prioritized, but developers and end users often don't have a great experience. The site's slow, developers have bad development environment, front-end development environment particularly, and so on. So anyway, so fast publishing is sort of the key to kind of making it all work for everyone. Because developers have a great developer experience like React and Gatsby and plugins and so forth. End users have great sites, and then really fast publishes. The under 10 seconds means that marketers can have a great experience kind of maintaining, updating the site. Because with CMS type sites, developers build it, but it's marketers who actually own it and run it. Sort of developers, their involvement sort of tails off significantly once it's going, but marketers, it's that's their day to day. And if they have a crappy experience, then it's just not a great tool to use.
Totally. And I know even our own marketing team here at Gatsby, we've been super stoked seeing some of the speed improvements lately. Because last thing we want to do is hit that button and wait forever.
No, I was part of my motivation was the months of complaints about oh my gosh, it is so difficult to see previews. And then seeing you guys really excited to wow, I click preview and there it is. It's really fulfilling.
Yeah, totally. And part of all that, or part of underneath all that, and we've heard about it a few times today, is this whole idea of incremental deploys. How can people start taking advantage of that? How can people use it?
Yeah. So at the end of my talk, I said we were private beta, but we got a little bit ahead of the schedule. And so we've launched in public beta now. So if you're on Gatsby Cloud and you just go to your site preview settings and you can enable it. So if you're on Gatsby v4, we're only supporting v4 right now. We will support v3 in the future. You can enable incremental deploys and it'll immediately start working. And you should see probably 2-3x improvement at least to preview times on GatsbyJS.com. It went from like the median preview publish went from 55 seconds and it's now at 16 seconds. And like we're not, and which is great, you know, like no one's complaining with that. But even with that, like I said in my talk, it's like 10 seconds is really what it has to be, just to be a good experience. You know, kind of on, you know, how humans work. Like we can't sit around for more than 10 seconds waiting for something. And so we have a number of additional improvements that are coming that's going to get that median down under 10 seconds.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I can't wait. I can't wait for that. Yeah. Being the marketer in the room. These are such quick Q&A sessions. I know the crowd would love to hear from you more. I get to talk to you all the time, so I get to cheat and talk to you. But I know people. You're on Discord. You're on Twitter, right? People can find you, right?
Yeah. So this is a very open public beta. I'm working directly on this. I have been working directly on this for the last 3 months, and like we want to make your preview experience incredible. So if you're a Gatsby Cloud preview user and you're not at all happy about anything, please reach out to me directly. I would love to talk to you about it. I mean, we're fixing tons of stuff, making things a lot better. We're really excited about all the improvements that are coming as part of this incremental deploys rollout.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us live and for obviously the great talk. We're going to move on. We've got to keep this show rolling. We've got a couple awesome talks coming up next. We've got right here, we're going to have Gatsby Senior Software Engineer Catherine Beck, along with Senior Product Manager Jack Selwood. They're going to talk about how Preview can help your content team kick ass. And then we've also got Matt Zimmer from Gatsby agency partner Novum, who's going to talk about integrating Gatsby into an agile workflow for great customer experiences. So again, as per usual, go click that agenda button, find the session most interesting for you right now, and we'll see you there. See you, everybody.
Thanks for coming. Enjoy.